The term wildlife is a very strange one because to me it's a very broad term, but at the same time it's not very broad. Now, what I mean by that is it's very broad because it can be used to describe animals in Africa, in South America, and North America, and anywhere in Europe or just anywhere in the world that isn't in captivity. And some people can argue that um, animals in captivity are part of wildlife. However, that's a different discussion and one that I don't necessarily agree with. But it's not broad at the same time because you're specifically looking at animals that are wild. Hence why I don't really agree with the captivity thing because I don't think they're fully wild animals. It's a slippery slope. Discussion for another day. But with wildlife, it's very, very interesting because we often associate wildlife to be something that's not controlled by humans. And that's what it is to me. Without human intervention, I suppose. Um, well, with wildlife, they've been experiencing a lot of issues. They haven't shied away from experiencing their fair share of issues. Most of them, unsurprisingly, have been caused by humans. Deforestation, pollution, poaching, climate change, the list goes on, and it's unfortunate, but there's a pretty big list, but I'm not going to read them all. Now, what happens when wildlife faces these problems that have been caused by humans? Well, nothing good. Nothing good. We see this over and over. Nothing good. Um, Best case scenario is a couple of animals unfortunately pass away. Worst case scenario is an entire animal goes extinct. And very, very worst case scenario is a keystone species goes extinct, and which causes a domino effect, which is not what we want. Now, to many, hearing that would not be good, and they would recommend human interaction, like intervention, to stop that domino effect, or even just any animal dying. Well, here's my question. How much human intervention does it require, like, does it have to take for us to consider an animal no longer wild or wildlife? Well, let's look at rhinos, mainly the white rhinos. Now, the white rhinos were under constant surveillance, surrounded by humans, had no predators, um, and was in a controlled environment and had limitations on where it could go. Um, does that sound wild? Because that sounds more like it's captive. It's a captive animal. And I already addressed my feelings on captive animals being wildlife, and I don't necessarily agree with them being one and the same. So, how much human intervention does it take, and what type of human intervention does it take to make them trespass from being known as a wildlife, wild creature, and one that isn't? Well, I'll be completely honest. I really don't know. Um, I don't know if there's a line that, when it's crossed, makes it no longer wild. Um, I don't think there is a line. I think it depends with each scenario. Um, but human intervention can be very, very advantageous for an animal. But it's a question of, if we intervene so much, is it still going to be able to be considered wildlife? I don't know. it's hard to kind of process that, because once you start processing that, it goes down a rabbit hole of what wildlife truly is. If there's a stop to it, and if there is, where is that stopping ground of, hey, you're no longer wildlife. You know, one example of kind of an animal passing on, passing past that point of being considered wildlife is humans. I don't really consider humans being wildlife or wild or any of that stuff. I mean, for obvious reasons, I don't think I need to get into it, but I'm going to. We live in a state where we don't have any predators. We don't have to worry about food. We can just go to our nearest McDonald's and pay in paper, in a form of currency that we made up. I'm able to sleep on a bed with pillows. I got a mini sun right here. I mean, got doors. I got all that stuff. Imagine a Neanderthal or an early aged Homo sapien just wandering in this room and being able to just get a burger, just boom, right there with a piece of paper. No, they would go nuts. They would not understand it. So I think there's that disconnect from our wild selves to ourselves that we are today. Now that begs the question: is all of that owed to like human intervention when it comes to other animals? Probably. Possibly. Like I said, it's a slippery slope. It is, of what to consider wildlife, and what wildlife truly is the lions in Africa wildlife? Yes, I believe so. Are the hippopotamuses in zoos wildlife? Not really. Is my dog wildlife? No, it isn't. At least not to me. So it's a slippery slope, and you can't help but wonder if that's because of human interaction. Again, I don't really know. And I don't think it's going to be an answer I'm going to be able to find swiftly or within the next couple of days or months. But wildlife is certainly a predicament, because we have two options. Either leave wildlife alone, and wildlife is just going to be decimated by these problems that humans have created and continue to create, or intervene and they survive, but they lose those title of wildlife, at least if we intervene enough. I don't think there's a right answer. I think there's one answer that's certainly better than the other, but there's no perfect answer, and that's just an unfortunate reality in this world. There rarely are perfect answers. There rarely is a perfect solution. There can be perfect problems. There really can be. But there's never a perfect solution for these perfect problems. And I'm afraid that this whole human impact and all that stuff on wildlife is just going to be another one of those perfect problems with no perfect solutions.